This happened about a week ago. I went on a road trip to take a friend of mine home to Colorado. He wanted to fly back, but I really wanted to go on a road trip. I live in Ohio, so we had to go through Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and Kansas. A 22-hour road trip to get there, not including the rest stops. I'd never traveled this far before in a car. I've flown to Florida once or twice, and I didn't see myself getting an opportunity like this in the future. Anyways, I drive most of the way because, well, I love to drive, and no one seemed too concerned with it. The person I was taking home, Travis, said if we needed to switch, it wouldn't be a big deal. At this point, I've been behind the wheel for nearly 12 hours, and maybe it was because I was tired, even though I didn't feel tired. But the creepiest thing happened. I needed gas, and there was this station closed, so it was dark aside from the lights from the pump, and a street light at the gas station. I was creeped out, but I also wasn't concerned because I hadn't had any problems beforehand. So I do my business with no issues. Now, this gas station was different than what I'm used to. To get gas, you do the usual, select the type of gas you want, but as soon as you pull the nozzle from the pump and into your car, you then had to pull a lever up, and then start to pump the gas. It took me a while of fidgeting in order to realize this. I had seen it in a movie. But right as I realized this, I hear a voice call out from besides the closed building of the gas station. I don't remember exactly what it said, but if I had to guess, it was a "hey" or "over here," definitely male. But when I set the pump to where I don't have to hold the trigger, I looked up and saw nothing there. Again though, I was tired, so I didn't pay any attention to it. This was a gas station deserted, and I went on a witch hunt to find this gas station for this post. I think it was a Sinclair gas station. It has a dinosaur for a logo. But about halfway through, I hear it again. Another male voice calling out to me. Maybe he thought I was alone because my roommate was sleeping in the back and Travis had laid the front seat down. Stupid me didn't feel like stopping again, so I ignored it and kept pumping while looking at my phone. Next, I heard the man whistling for me like I was a dog, and the absolute worst feeling comes over me. Something I have genuinely never felt before. But it was a mix of fear and, oh crap, I literally felt my stomach drop. I looked up and sure enough there was a man, dressed in a brown coat with the hood up, and red shorts. I don't even know how I remembered that, but after I looked up he let out a yell. "Hey, look at me when I'm talking to you." It was so loud that my roommate lying in the back seat shot up and rolled her window down. "You good?" At this point the man was speed walking over towards me, but it was like, as soon as she made herself known, he turned himself around and booked it back to the back of the building. I heard a car start and gravel fly as he got out of there. I didn't look at his car or van or whatever he drove because I was admittedly stuck in my place. And I think my roommate knew it too. I know a lot of people try to plan for this type of stuff, especially women like myself. They have a fully thought out idea as to how to handle it. What they're gonna say, where they're gonna run, maybe even who to call. Even I did. But when it actually happens, we're clueless, stuck in fear. And I was stuck. I'm glad my roommate let her presence be known when she did. I'm glad I wasn't alone. After I filled up the car, she took over for me. I don't know what that man wanted or why he was yelling at me, or even walking towards me. But I don't ever want to experience something like that ever again. This happened about 3 years ago, but I still think about it from time to time and it still creeps me out. I was a 21-year-old guy at the time and had just moved into a new apartment on the first floor of a building. It was late one night and my roommate was out when somebody knocked on the door. This was not uncommon as we were in college and my roommate had friends that would come by to hang out at all hours of the day. I just figured it was one of his friends, so I get up and check the peephole. Staring right back at me through the peephole is an eyeball pressed against it. Again, this is also something that one of our friends might do just to be funny. I chuckled and opened the door, surprised to see a guy in his mid-20s that I didn't recognize. He was strange, to say the least. He was very hyper and immediately launched into a door-to-door salesman type pitch. I can't remember exactly what he was even selling, but it was something about the local university, which I also attended at the time. The whole time he was talking, he kept looking past me into the apartment. He was fidgeting and even standing on his tiptoes to see inside. Still, I just thought the guy was weird and nervous and might not have been all there. I politely declined to buy anything from him, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. I finally had to be pretty stern in telling him that I wasn't interested. He finally accepted defeat, and as I was closing the door, he put his hand out and stopped the door from closing. Before I can be like, "What the hell, dude?" he smiles at me and says, "I like Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64 too." Now me and my roommate had been staying up late into the night playing Mario Kart 64 in my bedroom for the past several days before that. But there was nothing that he could see from the apartment entrance that had anything to do with Mario Kart. I was taken aback and trying to add things up in my head and confusingly asked, "How do you know I play Mario Kart?" He then got super nervous and said, "Oh, I just thought that anyone with a couch like that would be into Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64. 'Cause you know, it's like a retro game and that's a retro couch." What the hell is that explanation? Then he was like, "Okay, bye," and literally scurried away. I shut the door and locked it. I started trying to put the pieces together on how he could have known that because, obviously, it wasn't because of my grandma's old couch. Remember, it's a first-floor apartment that backed up to woods. My roommate got home shortly after that and I immediately tell him about the encounter. He was freaked out too, and so we started investigating. At first it seemed as if there was no way to even see inside my bedroom. My blinds were always down. We went outside and tested it, and found that the only way to see inside would have been if you had your face right up against the window. And even then you kind of had to crouch and close one eye just to get a glimpse of the inside. A couple more creepy details. My window was over a balcony and the Nintendo 64 console itself was stored inside of the TV stand and was not visible. You'd only be able to see it while we were actively playing, which we never did until we were a little stoned, and it was like 2 a.m., so basically this freaking creep had been jumping the railing to our balcony, pressing his face against my window, and was watching us play Mario Kart in the middle of the night. Never saw the guy again, but needless to say, I was pretty paranoid for a while after that. I constantly checked my windows and woke up in the middle of night, paranoid that he was standing just a couple feet away, watching me sleep. Just a very unsettling encounter. I'm glad that nothing more ever came of it, and that I never saw him again. But I have always wondered what his motives were. First time poster here, long time reader. Sorry if this is too long. I really don't want to bore anyone. I also wanted to say that this story is objectively true and I tried not to fluff anything to make it seem worse than it was. So yeah, here we go. About 2 years ago, I was long distance dating a guy who was my first love. He loved me too, but unfortunately due to the long distance and his addiction problems, we had to break it off. As most people react when their first relationship or love ends, they enter weeks of depression or denial. I had trouble sleeping for at least a month, This caused me to be late to work almost every day, and as a result, I received a warning that if I didn't fix my attendance issue, then I would be let go. I immediately forced myself to try to occupy my time with my freelance illustration and really attempted to go to bed early. The first couple of days it was rough, but I kept at it. The first night I remember getting work done and sleeping on time was the night it happened. Quick backstory. My roommate and I lived in a house separated into 2 separate living spaces. One for our friends that rented the upstairs, and one for us downstairs. I figured I should mention this because our windows, for example, were very easily accessible and unfortunately didn't have locks. We also had a backyard that was fenced off, but like the windows, the fence door was also lock-free. Now to what happened. I was asleep, but due to being a light sleeper and being incredibly heartbroken, I easily awoke to lights coming through the blinds of my bedroom window. Luckily, my bed was adjacent to the window, so they didn't see me. I was still a little foggy from being sleep deprived, and because of the melatonin, but forced myself up when whispering voices came from the people holding the flashlights. The people, there were at least 3 of them, it was all such a blur that I can't really remember that much detail, were wearing all black and began to move towards the fence of our backyard. I immediately began to feel so emotional at being woken up and my body went into autopilot. I grabbed my phone and box cutter. I worked at Trader Joe's where we have to use them every day, and woke my roommate up. I dialed 911 and handed him the phone to tell the police people were attempting to break in. My amazing roommate seemed to understand immediately, despite being shaken awake. I pounded my way to the kitchen where we had a huge window looking into the backyard, and my adrenaline pumped as I saw the strangers make their way through the fence, their flashlights bobbing around. It was this moment that triggered me into a fit of tears. Not the cute one drop going down my cheek kind, but the type where rivers of tears came down my face, making it difficult for me to see. I mean, my boyfriend who I loved left me. I haven't been able to sleep, the job I love is threatening to fire me, and now these assholes woke me up and are trying to take what little we have. They began to look through our backyard shed, which like an idiot we hadn't attached a padlock to. Inside was the bike my dad bought for me, the bikes of our friends who lived upstairs, old TVs, etc. One of the intruders made their way to our back door when, in a fit of tears and anger, I beat him to it. I flicked our kitchen lights on and swung open the door. The stranger was right in front of me and jumped backward. I mean, to be fair, I was holding an incredibly sharp extended box cutter and was crying really badly. I started yelling at them about being woken up and depressed and how dare they try to rob someone who was barely keeping it together. I was essentially yelling to no one after a couple of seconds because they booked it as soon as I confronted them. The police came, took our statement, asked for descriptions and said they'd look around. They never found anyone, probably because I didn't follow the strangers to see how they got to our place. If so, I could have gotten a license plate or something. It didn't occur to me until afterwards that I should have told them the police are coming, or worry that they might have hurt me and, more importantly, my roommate. Looking back, I feel really bad about risking our lives like that. I really don't know what came over me, but I was holding in so much sadness and anger that these people caused me to let it out. Anyway, that's what happened. I learned a lot since then, like having our landlord install locks for our windows and seeing a therapist, haha. It may have worked out for me, but to anyone reading this, please, don't be as stupid as me, especially if there are other people whose lives are at stake. I should have waited inside for the police or yelled at them through the window, but I didn't. So yeah, If the people who tried to break into our home are reading this, I hope we never encounter each other again, and I assume the feeling is mutual. So I'm sitting in my living room in pitch black darkness at 4 a.m. just sitting on my phone, and some lady just started knocking on my door saying, "Housekeeping." She did this about 3 times while I stood up and froze. Then I heard it angrily mumble something like, "Fine, call the police." Then I think I heard her march back into the neighbor's apartment across the hall. She just moved in a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if she's tweaking or what, but now I can't sleep and I have to work in less than 4 hours. Thanks, lady. Edit. Update. I was late to work and also realized it's Sunday, so the office to my landlord is closed, and I have to call tomorrow. I'll check with the guy who lives below me on the way home, though, to see if he's had anything happen recently. Edit. Update 2. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up like it did. It's about to be night 2 and I've since gotten a new Blink doorbell camera installed and talked to the neighbor below me about it. He said he hasn't seen or heard anything like that, so who knows. I haven't talked to the actual lady across the hall yet, simply because I'm super nervous to, and I figured if anything happens again, I'll have it on video. I forgot my landlord's office is closed on Sunday, so I'll call them tomorrow about it and let them know. Thanks for checking in and keeping me sane, guys. I appreciate the genuine concern, and thankfully so far I'm all good. Edit. Update 3. It hasn't even been that long since I put the doorbell cam up, and I already have really creepy footage of my neighbor acting weird and staring at my door. Edit. Update 4. 1 month later. Sorry for the long absence, but ever since buying the new doorbell camera, I had to sit and wait for things to come to a close and see if anything else genuinely interesting would happen. And wow, the past 2 weeks have been a roller coaster of some of the most hectic neighbor next door experiences I've ever had the displeasure of being a part of, with some juicy footage to back it up for you all. For starters, periodically my fiancé and I would see some bizarre behavior from my neighbor. From simple things to stumbling up the stairs late at night in what seems like a drunken haze, to propping her front door open at 3 a.m. with a table for 10 to 20 seconds, just to stare into space, then move it back and close it again. Within the most recent week and within that single week alone, the cops and even the fire department have had to come to our apartment specifically for, you guessed it, our neighbor. The first instance involved me sitting on the can trying to take a dump, then hearing her fire alarm go off for several minutes before checking on her along with my other neighbor downstairs. I smelled something burning, and after calling 911, turns out she left some food in the oven, passed out, and her entire apartment was being filled with smoke. They then told me that if I hadn't called, she would have suffocated and died. Only a couple days later, around maybe 10 or 11 p.m., we heard some zombie-like screaming from next door. After going on for just 5 or 10 minutes, I called 911 again because she sounded like she was being murdered. When the police finally got her to open the door, she was naked, covered in her own vomit. And from what I tried to make out over audio, she apparently took an entire bottle of Vicodin in a possible attempt to commit suicide. This led to her being taken out in restraints and sent to the hospital. Only again about 2 days later after she had come back, a cop who was here the past couple of times was again at her door. I came out to see what was going on this time since I didn't happen to be the one calling. And it turns out her mom called because she was saying she was going to off herself. He asked me some questions about her, then we talked about Red Dead Redemption 2 for a bit before a couple other cops arrived. I went back into my place at this point as they went in, and I guess she turned out to be asleep and fine. Flash forward to today, Thanksgiving. Her family and some movers were there taking some boxes of her belongings out. My landlord, I guess, terminated her lease, and now some friends of mine have already snagged the apartment. If there's anything I've learned from this, it's that what can absolutely be a creepy encounter could also be caused by someone who is deeply troubled and in dire need of some professional help. It's really saddening to figure out some of what was happening behind the scenes with my neighbor, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't glad she's gone. I hope she gets the help she needs, but I'm relieved to feel more comfortable in my own home.